AFL nude data breach. There's been a lot of talk around this over the last, let's say, 7 to 10 days. For those of you that don't know, a Google Drive folder was sent around with 45 folders of different athletes, AFL players, with very incriminating images, nudes, and different. I don't want to go into too much detail, but like I wouldn't want it to be me, because definitely we would have felt. I can't even find a word to bloody describe it. But anyway, disturbing, very, very disturbing. Somebody's organised this. Somebody's put it all together. We don't know who yet. The AFL stands on
one person.
Sorry, mate?
It could be more than one person.
Oh, for sure. It has to be a group of people that have come together and done this, because it's a massive task within itself. But how did we get here, Tony? Like, how do we have 45 players, some of them Brownlow medalists, some of them chairmen of boards and board members, and greats of the game? How do they make themselves so vulnerable?
Well, look, to be honest, I think a lot of people would like to know, and have asked the question, how do these AFL stars end up on a Google file in a state of undress? There are some very compromising images, and for those who haven't seen them, they are some of them bordering on disgusting. I mean, as you said, we're not going to go into explicit detail, but if I was one of the 45 players, I would be incredibly embarrassed. So it comes back to our previous discussion off camera. Who is at fault here? Is it the players for potentially bringing the game into disrepute? Or is it the person who has leaked the images?
I think both are, because a player should know better than to give somebody this sort of access. And the person who's leaked the images, he's been entrusted with somebody's very private life.
Yeah, but
know enough not to.
Yeah, but is it a hack? I mean, we know celebrities from around the globe have had their phones hacked through the cloud. Is it a hack? Is it somebody who has collated all these images? Is it a few girls who have got together? A few boys who have got together? We don't know anybody's specific type. It just, no one can put their finger on how this emanated and where it's going to go.
Let's put it this way: it's definitely shocked the AFL world, where we will hear things in the coming weeks. Luckily, the AFL's got a very good relationship with Google, and they instructed them to take it all down, which they did.
Understandably.
So, very convenient.
Oh, yeah, but Armin, should the AFL sweep it under the carpet, or should they allow the authorities to investigate how this happened?
The AFL needs to let the authorities to do their work.
Yeah, but why? So what's the breach here? Is it revenge porn? Is it stupidity? Is it a mixture of both? Is it a hack? Some people have even thrown out the suggestion of AI.
It could be. That in today's world, that's very, very possible. One thing I would say is this: at the end of the day, there's no crime committed by the players. There's social and cultural embarrassments, but crimes, there's no crimes. There's guilt because of they're part of families, wide relationships, and so on and so on. At the end of the day, they have to have a hard look at themselves and say, my honour, my dignity, it's gone down the drain in this process. How do I reclaim both? The AFL needs to let the authorities do their work. They need to get to the bottom of this so they understand. If they don't work it out now, this is going to be a problem moving forward.
Oh, but proven a day it will be.
Yeah, because now, if let's say it is AI, what happens in the future when this happens again? How do we stamp it out? How do we address it?
No, but we don't need to stamp it out. I think players need to be smarter. We're not going to stop males and females sending
leaks. We're not talking about.
No, but then it becomes revenge porn. What people want to know is it wasn't one or two or three players. It was a collation of 45 players in a state of undress. And I know that it had such an effect on two players from the weekend that both ended up injured.
Conveniently injured or just injured?
No. Well, look, I'm no psychologist, but my philosophy would be due to the release of these images that the psychology of the players was then affected and therefore it manifested into an injury.
Could be. So what's obvious is this, right? So we don't keep, ragging on. What's obvious is this. This was an organised effort by a group of something or someone or some bodies, right? And what needs to happen is we need to understand why it's happened, how it's happened for the future. And it needs to be dealt with.
Okay, so should there be a penalty?
For the players or for those that are exposed?
Either or.
Players, no.
And for the persons who leaked it?
Depends. Is it a crime to leak these things? I'm not a law professional.
No, you don't have to be, but it is. I mean, because if a player's image of this magnitude is leaked and publicised, well, yes, it is.
So how come the media is not punished when they go and look for these things on people?
No,
just to expose them and destroy it.
No, because the media is doing its job.
And what? So what's the difference?
No, but if the media has come across these explicit images, why should they hide them?
No, there's investigative journalists who purposely go out of their way to find things on people who become public figures, to literally destroy and bring them down the barrel because they have a different opinion, they have a different narrative to them. I don't see them getting what's it called?
What?
Nobody holds them accountable.
Who, the media?
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. And you know what? I think they do it
all the time.
I've been a part of the media for 25 years, and I think we need to be held accountable. The other thing is we investigate politicians, sports people, celebrities, the general public, and we are almost untouchable.
Exactly. So, like, Brendan Favola and that whole thing that he had with that young girl, I can't remember her name now, Lara Bingle and so on. Like, he had videos of him exposed to the media, and the media they put it everywhere.
Yeah, because
how's that any different?
We hold our sports stars to very high standards, so we push them up to pull them down.
If you're going to incriminate this person who's leaked this, you've got to start incriminating media too, because it's the same thing.
I totally agree. And I think now, you and I have discussed this at length, on and off camera, is that the media now, the mainstream media, is no longer untouchable.
It's becoming irrelevant day by day.
I wouldn't say irrelevant, but certainly the mainstream media's power is not what it used to be.
Of course it's becoming irrelevant. When you have
US elections... No, but it's not irrelevant. It's just they don't hold the same power.
All right. Are they becoming less relevant?
Less relevant, not irrelevant.
They're becoming more and more irrelevant. I didn't say they are irrelevant.
No. Well, the terminology would be less relevant, not irrelevant.
Okay, less relevant, day by day. Moving on, the AFL media, the AFL bye round, that now has gone from one round, what it used to be, to now it goes over to like 3 or 4 different rounds, and it's become a really interesting few weeks. I think it's really destroyed the momentum of rounds. You feel like there's always something missing.
I agree.
You feel like there's empty slots, especially when you're hardcore fans like ourselves. You watch pretty much every single game.
Yes.
Hey?
We try to. Yes, we do.
You know what I mean. Like, we're actively engaged, checking the scores, who won, who didn't, so on and so on. So what we're seeing now is that it's become a thing where these executives go overseas, send us photos of their holidays, and the media covers it, and they talk about it for weeks on hand.
Yeah, well, Ahmed, as we've discussed, who is the bye round for? I mean, it's not I've seen one AFL player go overseas. I think Mason Cox made it to Bali in the first week of the bye round. I think it was for 4 days. So the clubs are worried about their players recovering. So they give them enough time to fly interstate, to not indulge in the AFL and to be away from the footy club. But it just seems to be that this bye-fast seems to be created for the CEOs and the board members of the respective clubs to travel to Europe. We saw the outgoing AFL CEO over in Paris for a friend's wedding. Now, I don't begrudge Gil McLachlan whatsoever for attending his mate's wedding in France, but all these other CEOs and board members and people connected to the football world seem to be travelling to Europe in the middle of a football season. Now, this has been something that the industry has been crying foul over for as long as I can remember, wanting to travel to Europe and the United States for the northern summer, whereas we're stuck in Melbourne for our winter, which is ostensibly freezing cold. So who are we actually supporting here? The players want to go to Europe as much as anybody else. Why can't they?
Absolutely. Look. Honestly, at this stage, the way it's set up, I don't see enough reason and logic why it has to happen over such a long period of time. I've said to you off camera as well. Why wouldn't you make this week a huge week, a spectacle, an event, and an opportunity to grow the game in a different state? Launch a mid-season draft, have all 18 teams relevant and present there, not players, just the organisations, and turn it into a bit of a spectacle, an event that people can come to. People can meet these different teams that hold events, activities, make the mid-season draft a bit of an event, like they do in different leagues around the world, and broadcast it. Give your partners something else to broadcast, make it interesting. That's it. There's a break. There's a week. AFL is still relevant during that week, and fans are still engaged.
I totally agree with the entertainment value. If we are to, using Queensland as an example, so the 18 teams can move up to Queensland to get some sunshine, to get some vitamin D, to get out of the Melbourne and Sydney and South Australian, West Australian bubbles. It would be good for the competition. But by extension of that, I don't want a mid-season draft. Yes, the entertainment value would supersede anything, but I don't see the mid-season draft working unless, as I said to you last week, the only way I could see it working, if a player who hasn't played in the seniors for an AFL club is to seek a trade to another club, potentially. But I don't want to see Mason Cox having a bad year and then Collingwood says, well, we're going to let him go. We've lost Brodie Grundy. We don't see the value of Ruckman, and he can go to Hawthorn or whoever it may be who is seeking a Ruckman. If it's somebody from the state leagues in the southern states, yeah, I can see that happening. But I don't want to see a player who has played in the ones play for another team in order for them to win a premiership.
I absolutely disagree with you. I think it'll be one of the most amazing things for the league. I think AFL clubs will be able to, for once, actually bolster their list when they're hit and ravaged by injuries. I think that we need to move on in the world and move with the times. In today's world, the AFL essentially is an entertainment product. Why have they changed all the rules around making the game faster, less contact? It's more focused on speed, go, faster game, more entertaining game. Because at the end of the day, the broadcasters, that's what they want. That's their way of engaging people. Why wouldn't you let AFL teams field the best possible team that they can and give them the best chance of winning a premiership?
I'm not interested because it breeds disloyalty. And by extension of what you're saying, how many times has soccer, tennis, NRL, any of the other sports changed their rules? They don't. The AFL changes rules every year. It's borderline ridiculous.
Because those sports make adjustments. Of course they do.
Oh no, not to the point that the AFL does. The AFL changes rules.
What changes has the AFL made that are really drastically. I mean, yes, they've made some
They've made a lot.
changes.
6-6 rule. They've made the kicking out of bounds rule.
Yeah,
They've made the pushing the back, and then they've made the changes to the interchange bench. It is never ending.
This is off field, though, right? This is more with the player transfers and so on and so on. This is what we're talking about. Build that culture.
The NBA and the NFL in terms of player movement, we just leave it as is. They play for the one club for the 23 rounds, and then if they're no good or they want to move, they do it at the end of the season.
What's the ultimate goal of every single club?
To win a premiership.
Okay. What's the ultimate? Why do these broadcasters come and do these huge billion-dollar deals with the AFL?
They don't do it for a mid-season draft. We saw last week in the NRL or the week before. No, last week we saw in the NRL in Australia's rugby league competition that St George Illawarra's Ben Hunt indicated to his club that he wanted to seek a transfer to the Brisbane Broncos.
Thank you, Tony. Take care, everyone. We'll catch you all on the next episode of Raw Sports.